quite often, actually. We talk about it, but I think I have never done it on YouTube. For some reason, there is no reason. I just think I just forgot. Because I think it's quite interesting, and I know that quite a lot of people are wondering and having questions about it. Because I get a lot of comments, a lot of comments below the videos are about my accent. My accent when I am talking in English. And I feel like I owe you an explanation because some people seem confused, which I understand. It's confusing. I get it a lot that my accent is hard to place. Most of the viewers know by now that I am German. I'm German. However, I know I do get a lot that my accent is hard to place, that it like sounds a tiny bit German, but a lot more that but it sounds a lot more like other accents that are far off the German accent. So I'm gonna shed some light onto the many questions that I have read below my comment videos over the past years. I still can't believe that I didn't do a video on this yet. But today is the day that I will. So get comfy. If you need something, just boop my snoot like I do. Boop yours at the start of the video and get yourself comfortable in your bed or in your chair or wherever you are. Just snuggle up if you can. Get a cup of tea, glass of water. Hydration is important. And yeah, this is a bit of a story time ramble today. So I'm a little excited because, again, I do talk about this quite often on my streams, but it's more of a short thing, so today is probably going to be the most in-depth story, behind the scenes explanation that I did ever, so very interested to see to read what you guys think. So I am German, born and raised in Stuttgart, and my first and only native language is German. I do have a lot of different nationalities in my family, but my mom was a single mom and she speaks only German. Like, she can speak English rather well for German, but my entire life at home, all we did was speak German. So, native language is German. Only. I did learn English in school from grade 1. However, the German education on English is getting better. It's like the older was very German. Okay. But that's not where I got in touch with English first. So I did have it in school, but when we moved right before I started to go to school, whatever it's called, when you start going to school. Right before elementary school started for me, which was just before I turned 7, we moved. Because before that we were really close to my kindergarten, but my mom wanted me to be able to go to school alone. So we moved closer, and there were other reasons, but there was like it was my favorite apartment that we lived in. I moved a lot throughout my life. We moved to a very beautiful apartment, and that was quite close to my elementary school. So, and when we moved there, I didn't go to school yet. The school year didn't start yet. But when we moved there, we got in touch with the neighbors. You know, it was like a very friendly neighborhood, which is rare for like a really big city like Stuttgart, right? Stuttgart is a really big city for German standards. I believe it's around 600,000 inhabitants, citizens, right? 700,000, so it's quite big, right? For German standards, it's very big. And but it was a very friendly neighborhood, and my mom's like very social. So we got in touch with all the neighbors, and we also had like a lot of friends there while we lived there before we moved again, like 6 years later, maybe. But one of the neighbors was a family with 2 kids, and the father was American, and the mom was German, and the kids were speaking both fluently, German and English. And I found them really cool. I was very envious that they could speak a second language, because my parents divorced when I was 3 years old, and my dad in fact speaks 3 languages or 4 fluently, but he refused to teach us his original native language. Otherwise I would have had at least 2 native languages. He is a Serbian, so that would have been my second language, but he refused to teach us that language, and then they divorced, and it was very complicated. My family is very complicated, but I never learned that, so I was very envious of the 2 kids that could speak both their parents' languages. And I forget doing triggers. I'm so focused on the story. So that's where I got in touch with the English first, I would say, because, you know, they had a lot of toys and a lot of like movies. They watched American TV and so on, so it was a lot of English in their household. Obviously, the father couldn't speak German. He would understand it, but he couldn't speak it. He would speak in English, and I was really annoyed as a kid that I couldn't speak English, so I really wanted to speak English well. stayed in touch with them until I was like 18, even though we moved when I was like, oh god, I don't know, 11 years old, 12, 10, you know, and then we moved again, like even further away when I was like 13. So, but I stayed in touch with them. I was babysitting them. I was like friends with the family for a very long time. It's so weird to think for me that they're both grown up now, because I've seen them last when like the younger one was still in like middle school. He was so tiny when I got to know them. Like I was 6 years old, but you know, good old memories. But yeah, so I became really obsessed with learning English, and I wanted to sound like an American. Okay, I got this weird idea in my head as a kid then that I could not speak English unless it sounded perfectly. So I didn't speak English at all, even though like years later, when I was still babysitting them, I was afraid to talk, even though my English was really good at that time already compared to like the average knowledge of English, or you know, skill of like the average German. Like I was basically my English was better than most people around me, but I didn't see that at that time. I was like, oh god, I sound so German, and I was so embarrassed, so I just didn't speak English at all. But I wanted to like my dream was to one day talk to people and they wouldn't know that I am German but think that I'm American. That was my goal as a kid. That was my dream. So that is where I think a lot of the American influence in my English speaking accent comes from me being obsessed about talking English well, like having good, you know, language skills and sounding like it was my first language, which I think is very hard to achieve if it's not your first language. I know it's possible, I know people, but I don't know if I will ever get there, so although I have to say that it has improved a lot since I started streaming, but we're not there yet, so sorry for the little voice crackle after. Okay. Sorry, I make like weird moves when I'm like, gestures, facial expressions. I look everywhere when I'm talking and thinking. Just that one person that is like, when you're talking to them. Okay. So that is the American part in my accent. What I also do get sometimes is like, that I have a British accent for some words, like for a few words, which I think comes from my favorite English teacher that I had during high school. She was a very charismatic, lovely lady. I adore her. I hope I'm gonna see her again, because at that time I was still too shy to speak English, but I really want to talk to her someday. also influencing me, I think. So, yeah, so my English teacher, my neighbors, my stepdad, it's complicated. They're not together anymore, my mom and him, but it doesn't matter. As I said earlier, my family story, background is extremely complicated, so. Okay, so teacher. Okay, and then during school I started online gaming, right? So I made a lot of friends online. I was spending all my time gaming. And for 2 years I was regularly playing with a friend that I'm not in contact with anymore. We just lost contact for no particular reason. I just think it just, faded, not in a bad way. And he was Australian, and I loved his accent. I love the Australian accent. Nowadays, I wish I could trade my American accent parts for the Australian, sorry, Australian, not Austrian. Austrian sounds like German. I don't like it. But, Australian friend gaming that I was playing with regularly. And at first, again, I wasn't confident about my English at all, so I wouldn't talk on voice with them. I would write, my written English was very good at that time. But, at some point, if you keep, gaming with someone on a regular basis, and you get more comfortable around a person, right? We ended up going on, Discord. I think it was already Discord at that time. It wasn't TeamSpeak anymore. And so that was actually the first person I started talking to regularly in English, so I think that is why for some words there's a little Australian accent sneaking in, because even though the American was choice, something I wanted to have, I think all my other accents are bits and pieces from people that I've talked to, that I've just gotten to know, and that I've talked to or listened to a lot. So, I think it's natural to do that to some degree. I mean, I start having a really strong dialect when I'm talking to my parents-in-law, and they have my German has a mild Stuttgart dialect, but it's very mild. There's extreme dialects throughout Germany, so even if you speak German, you might still not understand 60% of the people if it's not your first language. There's people that I don't understand, and I'm German, but their dialect is so thick, I have no idea what they're saying. So I have a very mild dialect in German, but my parents-in-law, they're great, and they sometimes visit us, and they have this cool, I know it's not extremely thick, but it's 80%. So it's not 100%, but it's 8. It's quite strong. They have this Swabian dialect, right? Southwestern Germany, where Stuttgart is also located in. So I should basically be able to speak it, but I'm not. I don't speak it at all, the dialect. But whenever my parents-in-law start visiting, that's why, even though, you know, American and Australian and probably a little bit of British are like the strongest influences on my English accent, I think the reason why it's even harder to place it is because there's more, you know, like not everyone I'm talking to is having like excuse me, is having like English as their native language. So there might be words in my vocabulary that I use in a way that it doesn't make sense for German, it doesn't make sense for American, British, Australian. It might be, I don't know, French, and I don't know because I'm not doing that on purpose. I don't pick these up on purpose, not consciously at all. It all happens randomly, and I have no control over it whatsoever. So, you know, I think that is the story behind my English. I started getting a lot more confident talking in English when I started doing ASMR live streams and YouTube as well. So nowadays I'm not scared to talk in English anymore. At least not to thousands of people online. I don't know how it would be IRL. It felt kind of weird when I was last year. I was in a hotel and I was talking to someone. It still felt weird, like in English, like the receptionist. But you know, I think I'm more confident nowadays, and I'm just really happy about everyone that compliments me on my English, you know, because that little kid still wants to have that you know, almost native language skill level. It's still somewhere. It's still, you know, shining through, but as you can see, I'm more confident nowadays to talk. So what I can like as some, you know, final words for this video, maybe, if you're learning a language, whichever it is, I think talking is the key. So you're just more confident in using it, because using the language is the best way to learn, I think. Listening and using. I don't know how it is with, you know, getting rid of the accent, but just like, that's not what it's about. I think the most important thing is that you speak it well and you're feeling confident about it and people understand you, right? That's the goal. It shouldn't be that you're sounding like you're a native, because honestly, even though I was always so scared and embarrassed to have my English sound